What's up, all you fanatics of the campus gridiron? Glad you could join us here for another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Whether it's the TDs on and off the campus gridiron or the extra points during the recruiting wars, let's start gabbing. Welcome back, all you campus fanatics. Glad you could join us once again. Happy New Year. Hope you guys' New Year's gotten off to a very, very good start. The bowl season has not been disappointing, especially with the college football playoffs, 2 matchups. It was really wonderful. I will be doing a review of those 2 games, but I just wanted to get ahead of time so you guys could get my early release. I know I've been releasing these shows really right up to the point, and a lot of you did not watch my predictions on Gridiron Gab for the Washington Texas game. Of course, I picked the Huskies, and I did not pick the Michigan Wolverines. I actually picked the Alabama Crimson Tide to upset. But I will talk about those two games. But here we are right now. As you guys know, the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines will be facing off in the national title game. Well, I initially picked Washington and Alabama to be doing this matchup. And honestly, when I do my review, you guys will see why I decided to take Alabama. And I'm not going to go into that. You guys will have to watch the show to ultimately see why I believe Alabama should have been there. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. Hearing so much talk, everybody is jumping on Michigan's bandwagon. And once again, Michigan being the underdogs Washington being the underdogs yet again. It's really wild to see the way this is going down. Really, people will say, well, you don't feel bad. Embrace the underdog role. Now, do I agree that Michigan should be the favorite? Absolutely not. And you will see when you watch Gridiron Gab Triple Option, a review of the Michigan-Alabama game. Now, do I feel like there are some things that Washington could be exposed on? I look at the certain flashes of Washington, and they do give up yards on the ground. Well, let's do this. First, you're looking at the Washington Huskies, led by quarterback Michael Penix Jr. They're 14-0, and arguably the Biletnikoff winner and Odunze, who is arguably the best wide receiver in college football. And once again, he was on display in the game against Texas. He's the big play guy in that offense. But arguably, you've got a couple of other guys, and one who was a huge, huge weapon in the game against Texas, and I will refer to him when we do the other show that wraps this up. Sorry, you guys, I'm once again behind. There's just so many things to get done. But, as I said, when things are heating up, you got to try to get with it. But the other weapon that, in my opinion, that was forgotten about, people know Rome Odunze is the guy, but Jalen Polk. I said on the other show, if you guys go back and watch, that he was going to be huge in that game. But that's neither here nor there. I think top to bottom, what's going to give Michigan a lot of problems is the fact that Michael Penix Jr. is not Jalen Milroe. This is a guy that wants to carve you up. And then what was so tough about watching that game is that Penix Jr., when he does run, he runs well. But let's do an introduction as well. Where are my manners? Let's do an introduction to the Michigan Wolverines. The Michigan Wolverines also come in at 14-0. And the narrative on this is that the Wolverines have a more powerful defensive line, more powerful offensive line. Now, here's where I disagree with many of the experts. We've seen the the Washington Huskies face off with three games with powerful fronts. We just saw one with Texas. Texas has a very good front. I don't care what anybody says. Just ask Alabama. Alabama got after Texas got after Milroe a lot more aggressive than Michigan did. Now, granted, Michigan did have their share of sacks in that game. And we'll talk about that. But what I thought was indicative of is they were able to come out and do some things in that game against Michigan that no one else was able to do. Now, to me, that bodes exceptionally well for the Huskies. Now, in my opinion, Michigan has not seen an offense or a quarterback like Michael Penix Jr. Not one. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's only 3 to 4 quarterbacks in this country that have the prolific and the pinpoint accuracy of this guy. And then you couple that with the 3 to 4 weapons that they have. And I'm going to be honest with you, if Michigan has the kind of staleness or the blunders that they have in this game against Washington, they're going to get blown out. Because here's the reality. Washington has the offense to make mistakes. We saw that against Texas. That game seemed more like Washington was in control. And I'm going to say it like this. A lot of people are going to say, well, they escaped. Not really. They were in control of that. Kalen DeBoer almost gave that game away, and I'll explain in the video. I'll explain on the show where we talk about the Texas game. I'm just watching so many people, and they're talking up Michigan and so on and so forth. They're talking about how Blake Corum looks like, as Pat McAfee said, he sees shades of Austin Eckler. Look, Blake Corum played great. Had a great game. But I'm going to be honest with you. To me, there were times that like Texas was dominating the line running the football, and it was like, it's just a couple of drives. And honestly, Michigan, if they make the kind of mistakes they made against Alabama, they're going to get beaten. They might get blown out of this thing. Michigan has the right offense to slow Washington down. And the reason why I say this is Michigan likes to run the ball. And here's the thing. What's got to happen, and I'm going to be honest with all of you, if Michigan tries to get into a shootout, they're going to lose. The only way Michigan's going to win this game, you heard it here first, if this game goes over 21 points, Michigan is going to lose this game. And if it gets over 30 points, Michigan gets blown out. You heard me. J.J. McCarthy is not good enough to throw with Michael Penix Jr. If J.J. McCarthy has 300 yards passing in this game, Michigan's going to lose this game. They have to win this game running the ball. And they're going to have to keep the time of possession up over 30 minutes for their in their favor. They're going to have to be up over 30 minutes. And because if they're not up over 30 minutes and Michael Penix Jr. has the football, they're going to be in trouble. Because Polk and Adumake are the two best wide receivers in college. Well, the duos. They're the best. Odunze, these guys are just that good. Rome Odunze, these are the two best wide receivers. This is the best wide receiver combo in the country. I mean, we can look at the numbers, and you're looking at J.J. McCarthy's throwing the ball 314 times. Penix throwing it over 500 times for over 4,600 yards. And he's got double the interceptions of J.J. McCarthy, but he's almost double. He's got 35 touchdowns. Then you look at, and this is the thing that doesn't get me. Corum has fewer yards rushing than Dylan Johnson. And yet we're talking about Blake Corum. Yeah, the 25 touchdowns is impressive, but on 237 carries, I mean, I'm sorry I'm more impressed with Dylan Johnson, a guy who has more yards on fewer carries. Fewer carries. I mean, take your pick. A lot of people are going to say, well, he's got 25 touchdowns. Well, he has 25 touchdowns because he gets the bulk of the carries inside the 10. As I said, Roma Duzier and Jalen Polk are phenomenal players. And Polk is the lesser of the two. And that's hard to say when you say lesser of the two. And many of you guys know I love Washington because I love the Michael Penix Jr. story. Roma Duzier is just phenomenal player along with Jalen Polk. And there's just an assortment of guys. I remember who was telecasting the story. I think it was McElroy that said something to the effect in the game that this is the first time they've had this roster completely healthy. And it showed. I'm just going to be honest with you in the Texas game. I mean, if they've got their entire receiving core intact, this spells trouble for Michigan. And to me, Texas's defense was great. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they were better in this, that, and that, and the other. Well, here's the thing. To me, of all the schools and of all the programs in college football this year, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I say Washington has one of the most balanced offenses in the country. Now, here's the thing. Dylan Johnson had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game against Texas. But here's the other thing. Washington dropped back 39 times with Penix. And they ran it 31 times. This is a guy that threw for 409 yards. But then let's look at the receiving core. Look at this balance. You got Jalen McMillan. One of those guys that they talked about that he was finally healthy. He's a speedy, short, little guy. He's the little change of pace type of size guy. And Westover. These guys have so many weapons out there. And then, of course, you got Jalen Polk and Roma Duzier. These guys, you have to pick your poison. And Kalen DeBoer does a great job of getting these guys the football. To the point, we can go and look at how this is going to affect. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they're just going to minimize the amount of possessions that they get. Well, good luck with that. I mean, the fact is, are you going to be able to contain guys like Braylon Trice, whom he had 2 sacks in that game against Texas. And I'm going to say it like this. I'm not sold on J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy showed in the Alabama game. He was shook. I mean, there were throws he was missing. Now, granted, there were throws that the receivers were dropping. I get that. But they're not going to be afforded that opportunity. I think Washington's going to be able to get his pressure with 4. All Washington has to do is do what they've done the last 2 games. Stop the run. Stop the run. Now, it's easier said than done, but Alabama did it, and Alabama hasn't been good against the run. Ask Georgia. Georgia's running game was better than Michigan's. Michigan's run game showed up for a couple of quarters. I'd say the first half. And they were only up 13-10 against Alabama. That is not going to happen in this game. Now, I will say this. Washington did feel like they were dominating that game against Texas, and they were tied at the half. But I felt a sense that Washington had gotten ahead of themselves. That's what I felt. I felt like Alabama was the better team against Michigan, and they happened to show back up when they needed to. Kind of like it was in that TCU game. Now, there were a couple people on the page that said Washington becomes the new TCU. And once this game is done and Washington wins the game, which that is my prediction, Washington wins this game probably by, I think Washington wins this game by 9. Because I believe Washington has been good enough to continuously win these games by 10. And honestly, Kalen DeBoer, if you have a chance to run the darn clock out,
bruh,
take a knee, not hand it to Johnson.
What the? What a dumbass!
With that said, guys, make sure with the finale, this is the finale, you guys. The final game or the finale of Gridiron Gab Triple Option for the 2023 season. We will start a new season as soon as this game is over with. This will be a new season for us. And all of the news, you guys, that you will be able to get during the off season, all the big news, the little news, big time players, where they end up going in the transfer portal. I will be giving you updates weekly, sometimes daily, about certain guys that are what they're going to mean. Like there was a couple of big transfers. Will Howard, as you guys know about him. But as I said, stay up with us during the off season so you can catch up on all your gridiron news in the college ranks. And until we meet again, you guys, same Gap channel, same Gap platform. Huskies win the national championship.